You know that feeling? That surge of energy in a crowded venue, singing along with thousands, the unique magic of a live show.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Nothing like it.
Whether it's your favorite band or, a big game, it's just an incredible shared experience. But lately,
Uh-huh.
have you noticed how much harder, and let's be honest, ridiculously pricier it feels just to get the ticket to be there?
It definitely feels that way. The whole process seems more intense.
Well, today we are doing a deep dive that pulls back the curtain on, 45 years of the U.S. live event industry.
45 years.
We're using this really comprehensive analysis covering everything from concerts to venue showcases spanning 1980 right up through 2025.
Okay.
And this report gives us a detailed look at how this entire landscape transformed,
Yeah.
the rise of some incredibly powerful players, and what the alleged impacts of those seismic shifts have been.
That's exactly right. This analysis meticulously traces the journey from what was once a much more scattered sort of regional business
Right.
to an industry that's seen dramatic and, some argue, problematic consolidation. It focuses particularly on the period after the 2010 merger of Live Nation and Ticketmaster.
The big one.
Yeah, highlighting the scale of dominance that allegedly resulted. It raises some fundamental questions about competition and how its presence, or, lack thereof, affects every single person involved.
From the artists on stage.
To you, the fan in the seat, and the venues hosting the show, it touches everyone.
So our mission today, guided by this extensive report, is to understand that entire evolution.
Okay.
We're going to unpack the serious allegations of market control that this analysis outlines, and look specifically at what the report says are the alleged negative impacts felt by fans, by artists trying to build careers, and by independent venues just struggling to stay afloat.
And we'll delve into the decades of regulatory scrutiny this industry has faced, culminating in the significant legal action recently taken by the Department of Justice and a large coalition of states.
Right, that recent lawsuit.
Yeah, something this report positions as a potentially pivotal moment.
Okay, let's unpack what this analysis reveals. This report starts by taking us way back to the 1980s and early 90s. It calls this the pre-consolidation era.
Right.
What did the live event industry actually look like back then before these big shifts started taking hold?
Think much more local, much more fragmented. Concert promotion wasn't dominated by national giants.
So like regional players.
Exactly. Influential regional promoters, people like Bill Graham. Venues were largely independent businesses. It was a far cry from the centralized, integrated structure we see today.
But even in that more fragmented era, technology was starting to appear and change things, right? The report mentions computerized ticketing showing up.
Absolutely. Ticketron was an early name in that space, but Ticketmaster, founded back in '76, really pushed the technology forward with its computerized systems.
Okay.
A key turning point the report highlights was Fred Rosen becoming CEO of Ticketmaster in 1982.
Fred Rosen, right?
He fundamentally transformed the company. He focused on locking down exclusive contracts with venues.
Ah, the exclusive deals.
Yes, and introducing this now famous concept of revenue sharing on service fees that is a crucial detail we'll definitely come back to.
Okay.
And providing venues with financial advances to secure those long-term exclusive deals.
So paying them up front, basically.
Pretty much. This aggressive strategy helped them overtake and eventually acquire Ticketron by 1991, solidifying their early lead in ticketing.
And artists were also changing how they operated and reached fans around then.
Yes. The early 80s brought MTV in 1981. That was huge.
Huge.
Because it created national superstars, which naturally fueled massive demand for bigger nationwide tours.
Suddenly everyone knew the same bands.
Exactly. This upped the stakes for tour management and ticket distribution, which Ticketmaster was perfectly positioned to leverage.
Makes sense.
The report points to Pearl Jam's famous Clash in 1994 as a direct response to this growing power.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
They filed a memo with the DOJ alleging Ticketmaster had a virtually absolute monopoly.
Strong words.
And pressured venues and promoters when Pearl Jam tried to limit ticket fees, keep them low for fans.
And the DOJ looked into it.
They did investigate that complaint, but ultimately closed the case in 1995 without taking action.
Oh.
There was also a significant class action lawsuit, Schlesinger v. Ticketmaster, regarding fees that began around '99.
So Ticketmaster was building significant dominance on the ticketing side. What was happening simultaneously on the promotion and venue side of the business?
That's where the mid to late '90s saw the beginning of consolidation. a company called SFX Entertainment,
This FX, right?
led by Robert F.X. Silliman, started aggressively buying up regional promoters all across the country. Names like Sunshine Promotions, the Entertainment Group, Avalon.
Just snapping them up.
Yeah, the report notes this wasn't just random acquisitions. It was partly a strategic response to Ticketmaster's growing influence.
Oh, interesting.
Almost like an arms race, as the report puts it, where the promotion and venue side consolidated to gain leverage against the ticketing power.
And SFX, this collection of promoters, eventually got bought by a massive media conglomerate.
Yes, exactly. Clear Channel Communications, a giant in radio and outdoor advertising at the time,
It's huge.
acquired SFX in 2000 for about $4.4 billion. This created Clear Channel Entertainment, centralizing control over a huge piece of the national promotion and venue landscape.
Wow.
The report says this set a major precedent for large-scale integrated control in this industry and mirrored broader trends of media consolidation happening concurrently.
So by the mid-2000s, you had Ticketmaster, clearly dominant in ticketing, and Clear Channel Entertainment, soon to become Live Nation, dominant in promotion and venue operations.
This is the setup.
What happened next that brought these two giants into a direct confrontation?
Well, Clear Channel spun off its entertainment division in 2005, rebranding it as Live Nation.
Live Nation emerges.
With Michael Rapino becoming CEO, Live Nation continued SFX's strategy, acquiring more key promoters and venues, including the House of Blues chain in 2006, solidifying its position as the world's largest concert promoter.
And then they did something that seemed almost unthinkable at the time, challenging Ticketmaster directly.
This is where the narrative gets really interesting. Around 2007-2008, Live Nation made a huge strategic pivot.
What was that?
Instead of renewing their massive, long-standing ticketing contract with Ticketmaster, they announced plans to launch their own in-house ticketing platform.
Whoa. Build their own Ticketmaster, basically.
Exactly. The report frames this as an existential threat to Ticketmaster's dominance because Live Nation wasn't just their biggest client.
Right.
Live Nation controlled a vast network of venues and had direct relationships with major artists. They were uniquely positioned to potentially peel away Ticketmaster's core business.
So they went from being crucial partners to potentially fierce competitors, which, looking back, made a merger almost seem like the inevitable outcome to neutralize that threat.
Precisely. The tension created by Live Nation entering ticketing set the stage for the eventual combination.
Which brings us to that watershed moment the report details. The 2010 merger between Live Nation and Ticketmaster.
Yeah, the big one.
What were the mechanics of that deal and the stated reasons behind it?
It was an all-stock deal, valued around $2.5 billion at the time.
No.
According to the report, the primary drivers were Ticketmaster wanting to neutralize Live Nation's emerging ticketing threat,
Makes sense.
and Live Nation gaining access to Ticketmaster's incredibly profitable revenue streams from ticketing fees.
Right, those fees.
The explicit goal was to create a fully vertically integrated company covering the entire live event value chain: artist management, concert promotion, venue ownership operation, and ticketing.
All under one roof.
Everything.
And that vertical integration immediately raised major antitrust concerns.
Absolutely. Artists, fans, competitors, many voices immediately expressed alarm about the potential for a near monopoly controlling critical parts of the live music ecosystem.
I remember that.
The report notably quotes Bruce Springsteen expressing his apprehension at the time, fearing a return to a near monopoly situation.
The boss spoke out. And the DOJ reviewed the merger, of course. It wasn't just waved through.
No, definitely not. The Department of Justice conducted a thorough review and, according to the report, found significant competitive concerns.
It does.
Well, stemming from Ticketmaster's existing over 80% share in primary ticketing for major venues.
Already dominant.
And Live Nation's unique ability to challenge that dominance if they hadn't merged. Ultimately, the DOJ approved the merger in 2010, but only under the condition of a detailed consent decree imposing specific rules.
Okay, so they put conditions on it. What were those rules supposed to achieve? How did they try to protect competition?
The conditions were designed to try and preserve some competitive alternatives in primary ticketing. Key requirements included forcing Ticketmaster to sell its Passiolan ticketing business
Bastion, right.
to Comcast Spectacor, intended to keep venue self-ticketing viable. They also had to license their primary ticketing software to AEG.
Live Nation's main competitor.
Exactly, main competitor in venues and promotion for 5 years. Crucially, the decree prohibited Ticketmaster from providing ticketing services to AEG venues after that 5-year period.
Why? What was the thinking there?
The idea, according to the report, was that this would force AEG to develop its own competing ticketing solution, kind of push them into it.
Interesting. Any other rules?
Yeah, there were also behavioral restrictions, like forbidding Live Nation Entertainment from retaliating against venues that chose not to use Ticketmaster.
So no punishment for using a competitor.
Supposedly. And rules against bundling promotion services with ticketing agreements, trying to keep things separate.
So the DOJ tried to engineer the conditions for competition to continue. Did it actually work effectively in the long run?
Well, according to the report, not sufficiently. The DOJ itself later stated publicly that Live Nation Entertainment had repeatedly violated the terms of that original 2010 consent decree.
Wow. Repeatedly violated is strong language from the DOJ.
It is. The report mentions investigations revealing instances of the company allegedly pressuring venues into exclusive Ticketmaster contracts by threatening to withhold Live Nation promoted concerts.
So using their tour power.
Or taking other actions against venues using competitors?
So retaliation, basically.
That's the allegation.
What was the consequence of those findings?
This led to a significant modification and extension of the consent decree in late 2019, effective into 2020.
Okay, so they revisited it.
Yeah, they pushed the expiration date back to 2025. The new decree included clearer, stronger anti-retaliation language, appointed an independent monitor to watch for compliance,
Someone watching over their shoulder.
and added a financial penalty of $1 million per future violation.
$1 million per violation. That sounds like more teeth.
A bit more, yeah. But the report points out that the very necessity of strengthening and extending the decree strongly suggests the initial framework just wasn't enough to deter the alleged anti-competitive behavior.
Maybe the benefits of, doing what they wanted outweighed the risks under the old rules.
That's what the report implies. Potentially, yes.
This brings us to the concept the report emphasizes as the core of Live Nation Entertainment's alleged market power. The flywheel.
Ah, yes, the flywheel.
How does this powerful mechanism work in their favor, according to the analysis?
The flywheel describes how their extensive vertical integration across the entire live event process allegedly creates a self-reinforcing cycle of dominance.
Okay, break that down.
They have major divisions covering artist management. They manage over 400 artists' careers.
Wow, that many.
Concert promotion, they're the world's largest promoter. Venue ownership and operation hundreds globally, including many of the most important ones. And of course, ticketing through Ticketmaster.
So they have their fingers in the artist, the show, the building, and the ticket sale. That covers pretty much everything.
Essentially, yes. The report explains how strength and control in one area allegedly generate power and profits that reinforce the others.
How so? Give me an example.
For instance, their massive roster of promoted tours and managed artists gives them immense leverage to secure those exclusive long-term ticketing contracts with venues for Ticketmaster.
Because venues need those big tours.
Exactly. Venues desperately want access to those popular tours, and the report suggests they often feel compelled to use Ticketmaster to ensure they get them. That, in turn, solidifies Ticketmaster's dominance in ticketing. It feeds itself.
The flywheel effect.
Precisely. The report quotes an allegation that venue operators face the very real possibility that Live Nation Entertainment won't route profitable tours through their buildings if they don't use Ticketmaster.
That sounds like serious pressure.
And even a major competitor like AEG stated that when it came to booking dates for Taylor Swift's record-breaking Eras tour,
The biggest tour ever, basically.
Ticketmaster's existing exclusive deals with most of the major venues meant that AEG didn't have a choice but to use Ticketmaster's system for those shows.
Even ATG had no choice for Taylor Swift. Wow.
That's what they claimed, yeah. Highlighting the lock-in effect.
That power derived from controlling both the content, artist stores, and the access points, venues, seems absolutely central to the report's analysis of their alleged dominance.
It's presented as the core mechanism.
How widespread is that dominance according to the figures cited in the report? What kind of market share are we talking?
The report provides estimated market share figures from around 2023-2025. It indicates Ticketmaster handles between 70% and over 80% of primary ticketing for major U.S. venues.
70 to 80% plus.
Like
That's
big.
huge.
It is, and Live Nation owns or operates about 64% of the largest U.S. performance venues. But significantly, the report notes they control access to over 80% of major venues through various arrangements. like exclusive booking rights.
So even if they don't own it, they might control who plays there.
That's the implication. And on the promotion side, they promote roughly 60% of shows at major U.S. venues by ticket sales value, and that figure rises to about 70% specifically for amphitheaters.
Those are undeniably high percentages across multiple critical segments. And the report argues this structure creates a system that's incredibly hard for smaller, independent companies to even get a foothold in.
Yes, it highlights what's sometimes called a two-stage entry problem.
Two-stage entry.
Think of it like this. To truly compete with a giant who essentially owns the entire farm, the processing plant, and the delivery trucks, you can't just open a competing processing plant.
Right, you need the whole chain.
The report argues that new competitors feel they might need to enter multiple parts of the business, simultaneously trying to offer both ticketing and promotion, or own venues and offer ticketing just to be a viable alternative.
Which is a massive hurdle.
Massive, almost prohibitive barrier to entry. The report concludes that these high reinforcing market shares allegedly reduce competitive pressure throughout the ecosystem.
Leading to?
Potentially less innovation, higher costs for consumers, and less favorable terms for artists and smaller businesses.
Let's move from the structure to the alleged real-world effects. What does the report say is the most direct impact on you, the fan, when you're trying to navigate this system?
The most obvious impact is cost. No surprise there.
Right.
The report details a dramatic increase in ticket prices over decades. It points out that average concert ticket prices increased nearly 400% from 1981 to 2012.
400%.
While general inflation, the consumer price index, rose about 150% in that same period.
So way, way beyond just the cost of living going up.
An explosion, really. More recently, the average ticket price for a top 100 tour in today's dollars went from roughly $52 back in 1996 to over $135 in 2024-2025.
That statistic alone is shocking. A nearly four-fold increase, far outpacing inflation. And then on top of the base price, there are all those fees.
Oh yes, the fees. The report highlights the proliferation of often opaque fees, service fees, facility fees, order processing fees, you name it.
The list goes on.
These fees add a substantial amount to the base ticket price, with various analyses cited in the report putting the average add-on at around 27% to 32%.
Almost a third extra just in fees.
Yeah, and the report crucially points out that Ticketmaster's historical model of sharing a portion of that service fee revenue with venues,
That sharing thing again.
created a powerful incentive for both parties to not only maintain but even raise these fees. It made them a standard, often deeply frustrating, part of buying a ticket.
So they both benefited from higher fees. What about newer pricing strategies like dynamic pricing? How does the report discuss that?
The report discusses strategies like dynamic pricing, where prices can fluctuate based on real-time demand, much like airline tickets.
Surge pricing, basically.
While Live Nation says they don't use algorithmic surge pricing for all standard tickets, but the report notes their platinum tickets achieve a very similar effect.
Platinum tickets, what are those?
These are desirable seats where prices are adjusted based purely on perceived demand, often with no extra benefits beyond the seat itself, just a higher price because they think people will pay it.
So same seat, just costs more if demand is high.
Pretty much. This can lead to unpredictable and sometimes extremely high price spikes right at the moment of purchase, contributing significantly to fan frustration and the feeling of being priced out instantly.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
Another tactic mentioned is drip pricing.
Drip pricing.
This is the frustrating experience where a low initial price is shown when you start shopping, but then mandatory fees are added incrementally during the checkout process.
Oh, I hate that.
Leading to that sticker shock right before you finalize the purchase. It also makes it incredibly difficult to compare the true final costs across different platforms or events up front.
Right, you don't know the real price till the very end.
Exactly. The report notes recent regulatory efforts, like the proposed Federal Ticket Act and a new FTC rule taking effect in May 2025, are aiming to combat this by mandating all-in pricing.
All-in pricing, so show the full cost up front.
Yes, where the full cost, including all unavoidable fees, must be displayed from the very beginning of the search. Live Nation has indicated they will implement all-in pricing at their venues in response to this.
So maybe some relief on the fee transparency front soon. But overall, you have soaring base prices, significant and sometimes confusing fees, and prices that can jump based on demand. It all makes attending events incredibly expensive.
It adds up fast.
And does the report suggest this structure impacts the secondary market too? Like StubHub and places like that?
Yes, it does. The report argues that the way the primary market functions, influenced by the alleged dominance and practices like rapid sellouts, often pushes consumers directly to the resale market.
Where prices can be even crazier.
Even further inflated, exactly. The report mentions allegations that Ticketmaster itself has been involved in practices that blur the lines with resale, like the trade desk platform reportedly used by professional resellers.
Wait, Ticketmaster helping resellers.
That's the allegation mentioned in the report. The analysis suggests that a thriving secondary market with huge markups is often a consequence of strategies in the primary market,
Like what?
such as intentionally underpricing tickets sometimes to ensure sellouts and drive those lucrative ancillary sales.
Get people in the door for food and merch.
Right, or simply creating artificial scarcity that pushes demand to resale platforms.
And the costs don't stop with the ticket itself, do they? Once you're inside the venue, there are other expenses.
No, absolutely not. The report notes that Live Nation Entertainment heavily focuses on generating ancillary revenue, things like food, drinks, parking, merchandise,
Yet extras.
particularly at the venues they own or operate. Food and beverage is cited as the most common secondary purchase, with over 70% of attendees buying something.
Most people buy food or drinks.
Yeah. The report suggests a potential strategy here is to maybe underprice tickets slightly in the primary market to ensure a packed house,
Get 'em in the door.
knowing that you have a captive audience inside for high-margin ancillary sales.
And because they control the venue, there's no competition inside for that stuff.
Exactly. The analysis points out that when a single company controls the venue, there's minimal to zero competition for these items once you're through the gates.
Right.
General economic principles suggest that this lack of competition in a captive market allows for potentially inflated prices on things like that $15 bottle of water or, expensive popcorn.
So you're paying a lot for the ticket, a lot for confusing fees, and then potentially inflated prices for everything once you're inside. What about the actual experience of trying to buy a ticket? What does the report say about that fan experience?
The report details widespread fan frustration with the process itself. High-profile incidents like the notorious chaos during the Taylor Swift Eras Tour pre-sale in late 2022.
Oh, everyone remembers that meltdown.
The website crashes, the incredibly long virtual queues, the system errors they're highlighted as vivid examples.
Yeah, it was bad.
Critics, according to the report, view these issues as symptoms of alleged underinvestment in technology and infrastructure, arguing that with less competitive pressure, there's less incentive to prioritize system stability and a smooth user experience. Why spend the money if people have nowhere else to go?
That makes a cynical kind of sense.
The sheer volume of complaints filed with organizations like the Better Business Bureau, often citing problems with ticket delivery, cancellations, and difficulties getting refunds, are mentioned as evidence these aren't isolated glitches.
So, lots of people complaining formally.
And fans also face an opaque process. The report notes uncertainty about true availability, confusion over those different pricing tiers like platinum tickets that don't add extra benefits but cost significantly more.
Right, the platinum thing again.
And the frustrating checkout with drip pricing. Plus, many report poor or incredibly difficult to reach customer service when things go wrong.
It sounds like a combination of high costs, confusion, lack of transparency, and a system that often feels unreliable, especially under pressure.
That's the picture painted, yeah.
What about the impact of this alleged market control on artists? How does the report say it affects them?
The report suggests that this level of consolidation allegedly reduces artists' bargaining power, particularly for those who aren't global superstars with immense leverage.
So mid-level or emerging artists have less power?
Potentially, yes. This can translate into less favorable terms in their deals with promoters or venues, and potentially a smaller share of the overall event revenue after fees and commissions are taken.
They get a smaller slice of the pie.
Possibly. The report even mentions the example of the band Metallica, reportedly using a system to transfer a large volume of tickets to a resale account managed by a Live Nation entertainment broker to maximize their profits.
Metallica did that.
That's what the report cites. It implies this shows how even established artists might feel compelled to adapt to or participate in practices influenced by the prevailing system to ensure they capture sufficient earnings.
Adapting to the system they're in. And does this alleged dominance affect where artists can actually play or how they structure their tours?
Yes, the report indicates it can. Artists not directly affiliated with Live Nation's management or promotion arms, or those who want to use different ticketing platforms.
If they want to go independent.
may face significant hurdles, booking desirable venues or routing their tours efficiently. Live Nation's extensive network of owned, operated, or exclusively booked venues, especially large ones like amphitheaters, gives them immense influence over where major tours play.
Controlling the stages.
The report alleges that artists may feel explicit or implicit pressure to use Live Nation's promotion services or Ticketmaster's ticketing platform to gain access to these crucial, high-capacity venues.
So while Live Nation Entertainment can market itself as a convenient one-stop shop for artists,
Which they do.
the report implies this convenience might come at the cost of independent choice and flexibility for artists.
Exactly. The report suggests this vertical integration can create a dependency. That example from AEG regarding Taylor Swift's tour venues largely having exclusive Ticketmaster deals.
Right, the no-choice comment.
Underscores how even artists at that level can find their choices constrained by existing exclusive arrangements in the market.
Interesting. Does it mention anything about, musical diversity?
It does raise concerns about the potential for stifling musical diversity.
How so?
It suggests that a system focused on maximizing revenue from the largest, highest-grossing superstar acts and tours might divert resources and opportunities away from smaller, emerging, and independent artists who lack that kind of drawing power and leverage.
So less focus on niche genres or up-and-comers.
That's the concern raised. The decline of grassroots music venues, which are absolutely crucial incubators for new talent and diverse music scenes, is also mentioned.
Those small clubs are vital.
Absolutely. And while many factors contribute to their struggles, the report notes that a market allegedly dominated by large, consolidated entities can exacerbate the financial pressures on these smaller, independent spaces.
This brings us directly to the impact on that broader independent ecosystem, the independent venues and independent promoters trying to operate alongside the giant.
They face immense challenges. Competing directly against a company with Live Nation Entertainment's scale, its network of owned and controlled venues, and its web of exclusive contracts is incredibly difficult.
Hard to match that scale.
Very. Live Nation's ability to offer artists comprehensive package deals covering promotion, venue, and ticketing is something independent promoters who might specialize in just one area find very hard to match.
They can't offer the whole package.
Right. And independent venues can struggle to book popular touring acts if those acts are primarily routed through Live Nation's network, or if using Ticketmaster is seen as a non-negotiable requirement for booking large shows.
So they might miss out on big acts. And the report mentions alleged exclusionary tactics specifically aimed at these independent players.
Yes, a recurring theme cited in regulatory complaints detailed in the report is the allegation that Live Nation Entertainment pressures independent venues into signing long-term, exclusive contracts with Ticketmaster.
More pressure for exclusive deals.
And the report mentions allegations of pressure sometimes involving threats to withhold Live Nation-promoted tours.
The tour weapon again.
Or retaliate in other ways against venues that use competing ticketing providers. The report talks about a chilling effect.
Chilling effect, meaning they comply out of fear.
Yeah, where independent venue operators might comply with these demands out of fear of potential negative repercussions, even if an explicit threat isn't always necessary. This severely limits the choices available to venues and stifles ticketing competition in those markets.
Making it harder for anyone else to compete in ticketing.
And potentially harder for those independent venues to survive and thrive.
Given all these alleged impacts and challenges described in the report, what has been the response from regulators and government bodies over the years? This hasn't gone unnoticed, right?
Oh, definitely not. The report details a history spanning decades of scrutiny, culminating in some very significant actions recently. The civil antitrust lawsuit filed by the U.S. Department of Justice.
The big one from 2024.
And a large bipartisan coalition of 29 states and the District of Columbia in May 2024 is described in the report as a landmark move and the most significant legal challenge to Live Nation Entertainment's market position to date.
Why is it significant that it's a bipartisan coalition of states joining the DOJ? What does that signal?
The report highlighting the bipartisan nature is important because it signals that the concerns about this industry's structure and alleged practices are not limited to a single political party or ideology.
So it's not just one side complaining.
Exactly. It suggests broad, cross-political support for investigating and potentially challenging Live Nation Entertainment's market position, which can add significant weight to the government's case.
And what are the core allegations the government is making in this major lawsuit? Based on the report, what are they accusing them of?
The central claim is that Live Nation Entertainment has unlawfully monopolized multiple markets within the live concert industry, violating U.S. antitrust laws.
Monopolization.
Yes. The allegations, as outlined in the report, include misusing their integrated flywheel model to maintain and extend dominance,
Using the flywheel against competition.
locking venues into restrictive exclusive ticketing contracts, retaliating against venues that don't comply, tying promotion services to their venues, and acquiring smaller competitors to eliminate potential threats.
Basically, using their size and structure unfairly.
That's the government's argument, according to the report. They argue these alleged practices ultimately harm fans through higher costs, confusing fees, and less choice.
Right.
They harm artists by limiting their opportunities, restricting their choices, and diminishing their bargaining power. And they harm independent promoters and venues by making it incredibly difficult to compete and potentially squeezing them out of the market.
So harm across the board. And what is the government asking for as a remedy in this lawsuit? What's the potential outcome?
They want to stop the alleged anti-competitive conduct through court orders and are seeking potential disgorgement of unlawfully obtained profits and civil penalties.
Fines and stopping the behavior.
But crucially, the report notes they are seeking structural relief.
Structural relief. What does that mean?
That could involve ordering Live Nation Entertainment to divest Ticketmaster, effectively seeking a potential breakup of the combined company.
Breaking them up.
Yeah.
Separating Live Nation and Ticketmaster.
That's on the table. It's a potential remedy the government is asking the court to consider.
Wow. That would be massive. Has there been any movement in that lawsuit since it was filed in May 2024?
Yes, the report mentions a significant development. In March 2025, a federal judge denied Live Nation's motion to dismiss parts of the government's case.
So the judge let the case proceed.
Pretty much. This ruling is important because it allows the entire lawsuit, with all its serious allegations and the potential demand for divestiture, to proceed towards trial or settlement negotiations.
It wasn't thrown out.
No. The report views this lawsuit as a major escalation from previous attempts to manage the company's behavior primarily through consent decrees.
Those earlier agreements.
Right. Indicating regulators now believe those less drastic interventions have failed to adequately address the long-standing issues. They're going for a bigger solution now.
Are there other governmental actions or inquiries happening simultaneously beyond this major lawsuit? Is it just the DOJ?
No, the report notes it's very much a multi-pronged approach. The Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, is active, particularly focusing on fee transparency.
The fee issue again.
As the report mentions, the FTC issued a rule effective in May 2025 that mandates all-in pricing for live event tickets across the industry.
The rule we mentioned earlier.
To combat that drip pricing, requiring the full price with fees to be displayed up front. Also, in May 2025, the FTC and the DOJ launched a joint public inquiry, specifically seeking information from the public about harmful and anti-competitive practices in the live entertainment industry.
Asking the public for input.
Yeah. And historically, the FTC also settled with Ticketmaster back in 2010 over alleged deceptive practices related to resale tickets.
So the FTC is involved too. What about Congress?
Congress is also involved. The Ticket Act is moving through committees in both the Senate and House.
The Ticket Act.
Aiming to mandate all-in pricing, ban speculative tickets for seats the seller doesn't actually possess yet.
Selling tickets they don't have.
Right, banning that. And requiring refunds in certain situations. The report notes that congressional hearings have taken place, like the one in early 2023 following the widespread problems during the Eras Tour presale.
The Taylor Swift hearing.
Yeah, where senators from both parties sharply criticized Ticketmaster's operations. The BOTS Act of 2016 is also mentioned as prior legislation targeting ticket bots designed to scoop up tickets quickly.
Trying to stop the bots.
And states are taking action as well, with numerous attorneys general joining the DOJ's lawsuit. States are also pursuing their own laws for all-in pricing or anti-bot measures.
State-level action, too.
The report mentions proposed legislation at the state level, like California's SB 829, which aimed to ban exclusive ticketing contracts between venues and companies like Ticketmaster.
Trying to break those exclusive deals. It certainly sounds like there is significant and broad regulatory pressure right now, fueled by both this long history of concerns and high-profile incidents that have captured public attention.
Yeah, it feels like a culmination of decades of issues coming to a head.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, guided by this comprehensive report, it paints a very clear picture of the U.S. live entertainment industry, that has undergone a fundamental, dramatic transformation over the last 45 years.
Absolutely.
It moved from a more local, fragmented landscape with various independent players to one that is, according to this analysis, heavily dominated by a single, highly integrated entity.
And the report's analysis clearly links this consolidation, this rise of the flywheel of vertical integration, with a range of alleged negative impacts that have persisted for decades.
Right.
From those soaring ticket costs and often opaque fees that you experience directly as a fan,
Let's fulfill those.
to the pressures on artists trying to build careers and maintain independence, and the significant challenges faced by independent businesses trying to operate within this ecosystem.
The whole chain is affected.
The analysis argues that this flywheel of Live Nation Entertainment's integrated structure is absolutely central to maintaining this alleged market control.
The engine driving it.
And that even previous regulatory attempts, like the consent decree from the 2010 merger and its subsequent modifications, haven't fully addressed the underlying issues of market power and alleged anti-competitive behavior.
The fixes didn't fix it enough, basically.
That seems to be the conclusion driving the current actions.
Which is precisely why the current 2024 lawsuit filed by the DOJ in the States, seeking potential structural change like a divestiture,
The breakup possibility.
alongside the other governmental and legislative actions, marks such a critical point in this ongoing story. The outcome of these legal and regulatory efforts could significantly reshape the future landscape for everyone involved in live entertainment in the U.S.
It really could be a major turning point, depending on how it all plays out.
While the industry has certainly grown and used technology in incredible ways to deliver spectacular experiences, shows are amazing now.
No.
This deep dive, guided by this extensive analysis, makes it clear that there are long-standing, deep-seated, and unresolved questions about fair competition, equitable access for all participants, and the overall health of the system for fans, artists, and independent venues alike.
Big questions remain, for sure.
Thinking about this entire history of consolidation and alleged market control outlined in the report, and considering the scale and bipartisan nature of the ongoing legal challenges, given how deeply these issues seem to be embedded over decades, what does this report ultimately suggest about what it might truly take to significantly shift the trajectory for live entertainment in the U.S.? That's something for you to mull over until next time.